Thank you, Patricia. Mishistu. Welcome, everyone, to the 5:30 information session on SB 18 Tribal Consultation Guidelines and Toolkit Update. We are recording the session to be available upon request, and it'll be added to our website in about a week. Mishistu, Ka'en Kara Rico Miranda, Karum Sanaloni, Ka'apan, Shurudua Eshilat, Sokarondo, Ishenta. My name is Rico Miranda. I am the tribal liaison for the Governor's Office of Land Use Climate Innovation, formerly known as OPR. I've been in this position for about a year and a half. As a tribal person and an employee of a state agency, I'm well aware of the history and distrust by California tribal people towards state agencies. From 175 years of land disposition, disconnection, discrimination, and violence. But today, we're here to build trusting relationships, to learn from your expertise and how to best work with your tribe. If we have any tribal leaders that would like to come off mute and introduce yourself, please use the raise hand function and we will unmute you. Since this is a webinar style, folks will have to request to be unmuted to speak verbally. This can only be done with the raised hand function, so we know. Okay. No? All right. So my next task here is to introduce our team.
I'm going to Rico, start... I think we had a hand raised.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Allison Herrera come off, but I think her hand went down. Sorry,
Hi.
Allison. Oh, gotcha.
That's okay. Thanks. My name is Allison Herrera. I'm a member of the Holon Salinan tribe, and I'm not in leadership, but I was asked to be here to take notes on behalf of the tribal leader, Karen White.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad you're here. Okay. If there's no one else, I'll introduce our team. Behind the scenes right now, we have Nils, who's an associate planner. Arya is our Civic Spark Fellow. If you have any technical difficulties, need to get unmuted, raise your hand or message them. My name is Rico. I'm the tribal liaison. We have Patricia, our program manager, and Brandon, who is our project lead. So you will be hearing from all of us today. Again, our team is made up of dedicated folks who have a wide variety of extensive history working with and for tribes. So with that, I'll turn it over to our first presenter, Patricia Kennedy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rico, for getting us started. Started in a good way with those words. I'm the program manager for our policy unit here at LCI. And as Rico said, while our team does have dedicated and extensive history working within 4 tribes, we also recognize that we're continuously learning. And so really kind of want to set the stage for that. We're on a learning journey. We're learning from you, tribal organizations. As you can see here, we've been deeply engrossed in CNRA's tribal stewardship policy, our fifth assessment, tribal and indigenous communities report, TEK lectures, whatever it is. We're kind of really on this journey and really want to emphasize that as well. As a project team, we don't want this to just be an update of the previous SB 18 guidelines, but we're really hoping that it's guidance and tools that can help the state and local governments move closer towards meaningful partnerships with tribes. So in the spirit of continued truth and healing, we hope this project is one that continues to move us to that place of more meaningful, often and early engagement with tribes. So striving for a true place of partnership. One thing I want to emphasize, my first disclaimer of the presentation is that this presentation does not constitute consultation. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide you with enough information and answer questions so you can determine how and if you and your tribe would like to work with us moving forward. We have a long journey ahead of us, as you will see in this presentation, and we hope that you choose to kind of come on it with us. So today, our agenda is as follows. Our welcome that Rico already took care of, thank you. I'm going to provide some background on who the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation is. We know that there's so many state agencies out there. Who are we and what do we do? We'll provide more background on the project, engagement to date, and then what's ahead, future engagement and tentative timelines. And then we'll stop recording and have some space for Q&A and next steps. Okay, so our background is in a state agency. Who is LCI? What do we do? Effective July 1st, 2024, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research was renamed the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation. So you might be more familiar with OPR or the Strategic Growth Council, but we are all one agency. We were just renamed. Strategic Growth Council is still under the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation. And we're all housed within the Governor's Office. LCI is California's, as a state, we're California's comprehensive planning agency. So we set long-term goals, advancing policies to cut greenhouse gas emissions, adapt to climate change, meet housing needs, and modernize infrastructure equitably. The office is spurred into action by California's promise of enduring environmental and equity leadership, coupled with the realization that this progress is not occurring at the necessary speed and scale it needs to. We strive to shift from exploitive economies, built environments, and policies to ones that are beneficial to all people and the planet, and recognize that this requires transformative changes across all systems. Also recognizing that everything I just said is a lot of work and there's a lot of change to happen. So just kind of really being in that space of what our goals are and the work ahead of us. Okay, on this slide, you'll see our statutory functions: planning, CEQA, and environmental policy. I'm not going to go through all of them line by line. Today, we're going to focus on this first list under planning. In short, we work where climate, land use, housing, transportation, economic sustainability, and equity all meet. We help communities plan and prepare for the future in a way that's practical and grounded. So our focus is on smarter, greener, more equitable communities. You know, we strive to ask questions like, how can California transform without leaving people or in the environment behind? How do we build resilience to wildfires, heat, sea level rise, and floods? How do we ensure state resources reach communities that most need them? And I think we could continue to build on this, and will continue to build on this list of questions as we work with you more. We will say this a few times, but LCI is not a regulatory agency, and that gives us a unique role. We develop unbiased guidance and climate research. We update CEQA guidelines. We support local planning processes, but don't hold that regulatory function. Most of our work also involves building partnerships with local governments, communities, and tribes. And we're collaborating closely with tribes on programs such as the Strategic Growth Council's tribal housing programs, our climate team's grant programs, and our climate assessment tribal research program. Our goal really is to help communities navigate complex challenges with clear, practical tools and to make sure local planning reflects statewide goals and on-the-ground realities. I see a very active chat. Again, we'll go to those questions during our Q&A, but for now, I'll hand it over to Brandon to talk about the planning guidelines.
Great. Thank you, Patricia, for that overview of who LCI is and what we do. Thanks, everyone, for being here, taking the time out of your busy days. Now, what are the planning guidelines? So this section will give a brief overview on the planning guidelines that LCI is responsible for developing and updating. And hopefully by the end of our presentation, you will have some essential context to help you decide how or if you'd like to engage with us as we update these guidance documents. So starting off with the general plan guidelines. Well, first, what is a general plan? A general plan is the long-term blueprint that guides how a city or county grows and cares for its people, land, and resources. State law requires that every city and county keep an updated general plan that reflects current laws and local priorities. Using things like goals and visioning, maps, and land use policies, the general plan shapes how decisions are made over time and can have direct impacts on how early engagement with tribes happens. General plans typically comprise several elements. These elements covered things like land use, housing, transportation, conservation, safety, and air quality. And together, these elements should strive to achieve community well-being. Beyond those required elements, cities and counties can also adopt optional elements that reflect local and regional priorities. And these can include topics like historic preservation, water, economic development, agriculture, or urban design. And these optional elements can really create additional space for collaboration and new ideas and deeper thinking. A specific plan applies those general plan policies, but to a particular place. Oftentimes, this place is an area where future development or change is expected to occur. It includes detailed standards and design expectations, and even implementation steps for that specific area. These plans can involve places with cultural resources, sensitive water systems and habitats, or other sensitive features. Because they guide what gets built and where, specific plans can be important collaboration points between tribal and non-tribal governments. So in updating the statewide guidance, we've identified 4 core planning principles or themes to help structure how we think about planning. But these principles or themes are not prescriptive. The specifics will be shaped by consultation and tribal input. Starting with Indigenous knowledges, our understanding really draws from those frameworks already adopted by the state that Patricia mentioned. They include LCI's Fifth Climate Assessment and CNRA's Tribal Stewardship Policy, which emphasize respect for tribal sovereignty, reciprocity, and shared stewardship. How these themes appear in planning guidance is something we hope to learn collaboratively. Our aim is not to define these principles for tribes, but to make space for them within planning guidance in ways that reflect tribal priorities, lived expertise, and feedback shared through consultation and other engagement, which we'll get into in a little bit. So with that, I'll pass it back to Patricia to give an overview of what tribal consultation and local planning can look like.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon. So as Brandon just said, we're going to dive a bit deeper into tribal consultation guidelines and how they fit into this bigger picture that Brandon just shared. I realize I'm not video. Sorry. Okay. So SB 18 sets out a process for government to government consultation, simply stating tribes should be informed early and have a real chance to weigh in when land use decisions might affect tribal cultural resources. SB 18 is about long range planning, things like general plans, but also noted that it impacts specific plans and plan amendments. So it really applies to local agencies and how local agencies are consulting with tribes. The current SB 18 tribal consultation guidelines are from 2005, so almost 20 years old. Part of this update is bringing them to the present. Again, LCI is not an enforcement agency. Our job is to give clear, useful guidance to tribes and to local government so that they understand what the laws are, and what good consultation looks like. Next slide, please. So here we're really trying to illustrate how these three guidance documents that Brandon just spoke to work together, how they connect with each other in practice, and how tribal consultation kind of feeds into each of them. SB 18 sets a requirement that local governments have to consult with tribes during these certain planning actions, as I spelled out before. So they give that practical direction and help explain what consultation can look like on the ground. They offer tools, well, hopefully, to support tribe and non-tribal governments navigate this process. The general plan guidelines show where those consultation moments fit into long-range planning, further guiding non-tribal governments on how to comply with SB 18 requirements. And so those tribal consultation guidelines hopefully will feed into the general plan guidelines that will then feed into the specific plan guidelines. Those specific plan guidelines take those same ideas and apply them at a more detailed place-based or neighborhood level. All three documents work together, and as part of this update, it's to make sure that the guidance across them is clear, aligned, and easier to follow for everybody. So what's driving this update? Why are we doing this now? What's the impact? What's the purpose? A lot has changed since the last major update of the planning guidelines. The general plan guidelines were last updated in 2017. So in the last 9 years, more than 250 planning-related laws, new laws have been passed. The SB 18 tribal consultation guidelines haven't been updated since 2005. While we have a ways to go, we believe that collectively we learned a lot about how to meaningfully partner with tribes in these processes and hope to be able to include that in the update. Updating the general plan, specific plan, and tribal consultation guidelines together kind of helps keep everything aligned. And then more importantly, we really want this update to reflect what you tell us, what tribes tell us is needed today and where we want to go. So the direction of these updates and tools or training, what we develop through this process, while it's going to be rooted in law, really hopefully will be shaped through consultation and ongoing conversations with tribes. As I mentioned, we don't want to just like recreate the same guidance, right? We're striving for usable guidance rooted in the law and best practices for meaningful early and often tribal engagement, emphasizing that relationship building, because that's what we've heard from tribes so far. We're looking at existing laws and guidance, such as upholding Executive Order B 1011 for meaningful early and timely consultation. We really will strive to center Native voices in these updates. Really trying to not extract knowledge, but truly honor that cultural knowledge, tribal sovereignty, and lived expertise. We hear a lot from tribes and local jurisdictions about some of the challenges to make meaningful consultation and meaningful engagement happen. And so we're really hoping that these tools help tribes understand kind of their rights under these laws, but then also help local jurisdictions understand their responsibility and some useful tools to navigate their responsibility for to better meet these goals as part of this like overarching work. Next disclaimer is that as a non-regulatory agency, we're not updating the law, and we will need to follow the laws currently written at the time of publication, but there is a lot that we can do to help guide us in this work and provide clarification on what the law means and what that intention was. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brandon to talk about kind of what we've done so far and where we're going.
Thanks, Patricia. Yeah, so what has our engagement looked like so far? Well, we've been reaching out in multiple ways over the last few months through consultation letters and consultations themselves and broader outreach at statewide events. We've appreciated the tribes who have already requested consultation, and we've begun meeting one-on-one as those requests come in. We've also shown up where we're invited. So we were invited to share at Native American Day, hosted by the California Tribal Chairmen's Association here at the Capitol, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and at the Tipo Shippo Summit this year. All of those events we attended to share information and hear directly from tribal leaders and community members. We've also been coordinating with our state partners at the Native American Heritage Commission and the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs, as well as the Attorney General's Office, so that we're aligned internally. Overall, we're trying to create several different entry points into this process while still respecting that consultation is government to government. Now we want to talk about what we'll be consulting on exactly and the different ways tribes can choose to engage moving forward. At a high level, we're consulting on updates to these three documents: the Tribal Consultation Guidelines, the General Plan Guidelines, and the Specific Plan Guidelines. Each one touches planning in a different way, as Patricia mentioned earlier, and we want the updates to be informed by tribal perspectives and experiences, so that we can effectively integrate tribal consultation guidelines and the requirements of SB 18 into the general plan and specific plan guidelines. And we're coming in with a starting point. So the details and the direction will really be shaped through consultation and what you think works, what doesn't, and what support or tools would actually be helpful. So this isn't us telling you what these documents should be, but it's really us asking how you want to see them improved. What questions should they answer? So how do you want to engage? Consultation is the primary and core engagement pathway, and we'll meet with your tribe as often or as little as you'd like. We're also standing up a tribal advisory group for ongoing feedback throughout the process, and we're exploring other ways to bring people together, like potentially through tribal roundtables. But we want to shape those formats based on what we hear from tribes. We expect more engagement opportunities to come as the work evolves, and we're happy to adjust based on what best supports your needs. Roundtables are just an idea, but maybe there are others. So I mentioned the tribal advisory group. This is really just another way tribes can stay engaged throughout this update. It doesn't replace consultation, but it adds continuity for ongoing group conversations. Membership is open to tribes across the state, and we're aiming for a mix of roles and experiences. We're planning for monthly meetings over roughly 18 months, so it's quite a commitment. And we're working on making sure that compensation is in place to compensate folks for their time. The goal is really providing a space for regular, compensated tribal input as we work through these materials so the updates reflect what we're hearing across Indian country. And my lights just turned off in the office. Next slide, please. So with that, we're now accepting nominations for the advisory group, and both tribal nominations and self-nominations are welcome. We're hoping for a broad mix of tribal leadership, cultural resources, planning, environmental work, TEK, and other areas of expertise. The nomination process is hopefully straightforward. You'll see on the left side of the screen here, just name, title, email, and a letter of recommendation. And just email that over to our tribal affairs unit, and we're hoping to build a group that reflects the diversity of tribal nations across California. those requests for nomination are due May 22nd, with the letters of recommendation being due June 1st to give a little bit of breathing room. If you feel like this is the right fit for you or someone in your tribe, we'd really welcome a nomination. So again, we are at the very beginning. We initiated outreach in late 2025, which is still ongoing. So what you're seeing here is all the things that we haven't done yet. Or sorry, what you're not seeing is all the things that we haven't done yet, which includes the potential for roundtables or other events that we might be going to. If you have an event or a place you'd like us to present at, we'd be more than happy to. And just to clarify, there's no statutory deadline driving this, so we're not rushing. We really want to do this in a good and thoughtful way with you. This timeline will really follow the pace of consultation and tribal engagement. Our number one priority is getting this right and not getting it done fast. So thank you for being here and being a part of it. So next steps, that concludes the formal presentation part. We are scheduling consultations, so if you would like to engage with us in a government-to-government consultation, please do email us at the Tribal Affairs email address that Nils just dropped in the chat. Please consider nominating yourself or someone to the Tribal Advisory Group. Again, those applications or those nominations are due May 22nd. And are there other events or places we should be? Are tribal roundtables an interesting idea? Are there recommended reading or training or other learning we should do? Totally open to it. But yeah, that concludes the presentation portion. Again, want to thank you all for being here, for tuning in, for your partnership. We recognize this was a lot of information, and we're happy to go back to any slide. And we'll be sharing these slides and the links that we've been sharing in the chat with you in a follow-up email later this week, or within a week. And we hope to hear from you and your interest in maybe joining the advisory group or a consultation. With that, we will stop the recording and move to some Q&A.